They told me to keep my head down, to stay silent like everyone else. But the day I spoke up, everything changed, and not just for me. What started as a warning turned into a movement no one saw coming. I used to think loyalty was everything. If you worked hard, kept your head down, and did what you were told, things would work out. That's what my father believed, and he passed it down to me like a family heirloom. So for the first 3 years at Carson Tech, I did just that. Showed up early, stayed late, never complained. The office looked polished on the outside, glass walls, polished floors, coffee machines that served 5 kinds of espresso. But behind that shine, something always felt off. It started with little things. One of my teammates, Rosa, was always the last to leave, even when she wasn't feeling well. She said our manager, Greg, kept track. Another guy, Sam, worked through his lunch breaks almost every day. No one told him to, but we all knew it was expected. I remember one Friday we hit a tight deadline. Everyone was exhausted. I glanced at Rosa. Her eyes were red and her hands trembled slightly as she typed. She had asked for the weekend off months ago, but Greg denied it last minute. "Company needs come first," he said with a fake smile. I wanted to say something right then, but I didn't. I just nodded and went back to my screen, feeling like a coward. That night I couldn't sleep. My stomach churned with guilt. It wasn't just Rosa. There was a pattern, a culture of silent pressure, unspoken rules, and consequences for anyone who pushed back. I started to pay closer attention after that. Meetings where women were talked over. A younger guy, Malik, whose ideas got ignored until someone else repeated them louder. Even my own hours kept creeping up, unpaid and unnoticed. It was like a hairline crack in glass, barely visible but growing with every added pressure. I didn't want to admit it back then, but something was seriously wrong. And once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. After that night, I started paying closer attention, not just to what was happening, but to how people acted. Fear clung to the air like humidity. Conversations paused when Greg walked by. Laughter died in the corners. People looked over their shoulders before saying even the smallest thing. I started having quiet chats with coworkers in the break room or outside in the parking lot. It was always the same story. Overtime without pay, being voluntold to work weekends, passed up promotions with no explanation. Everyone knew something wasn't right, but no one wanted to be the first to say it out loud. One afternoon, I found Malik alone near the vending machines. He looked drained. "You doing okay?" I asked. He gave a half smile. "Yeah, just the usual." I hesitated, then asked, "Do you ever feel like this place doesn't care about us, that no matter how hard we work, it's never enough?" He looked at me for a long second, then he nodded. "Every damn day." We talked for a while, quiet, measured words. He'd noticed it all too. The pressure, the fear, the way Greg used praise like a leash and silence like a punishment. Malik had even kept a log of things, dates, emails, comments in meetings. I was shocked. Why keep it all? "In case someone finally does something," he said. That stuck with me. Later that week, I sat in my car after work, staring at the building. I thought about Rosa, about Malik, about myself. How long could we all keep our heads down before something snapped? The next morning, I requested a meeting with HR. It wasn't dramatic. I brought up concerns about the long hours, the toxic management, the favoritism. I was calm, careful, respectful. The HR rep smiled, nodded, took notes, but I could tell. Behind her polite face, she'd already made a decision, not about the issues, but about me. As I walked out of her office, I caught sight of Greg through the glass. He was smiling, too. That was the moment I realized something important. Speaking up in a place built on silence isn't seen as brave. It's seen as dangerous. The fallout came faster than I expected. 3 days after the HR meeting, I got called into Greg's office. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Just a quick chat," he said, gesturing to the chair like he was doing me a favor. I sat down, heart thudding. Greg folded his hands. "We've been reviewing your recent performance, Daniel. There've been concerns." "Concerns," I repeated. "Like what?" He glanced at a folder, probably empty. "You've been missing deadlines, seeming disengaged. Your team's productivity has declined." "That's not true," I said, trying to stay calm. "I've hit every target. I've been pulling extra hours." He raised a hand to cut me off. "This isn't a debate." My throat went dry. I saw what this was. "We're letting you go," he said flatly. "Effective immediately." It felt like someone had slammed the air out of my lungs. I just stared at him, stunned. You're firing me for what? Bringing up mistreatment. Greg leaned back, voice smooth as ice. I suggest you think carefully about your next steps, Daniel. You signed a confidentiality agreement. Let's not make this harder than it needs to be. I didn't argue. I knew it wouldn't help. I stood up slowly, legs shaking. I gathered my things in silence while everyone else watched from behind their screens, pretending not to see. No goodbye hugs, no sympathy, just quiet. I walked out of Carson Tech with a box in my arms and a knot in my chest. 3 years of loyalty, gone in a 10-minute meeting. That night, I sat in my apartment, staring at my hands. Anger boiled beneath my skin, but shame settled deeper. Was I stupid for speaking up? Was I naive to think it would change anything? My phone buzzed. A message lit up the screen. I heard what happened. I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that. Rosa. I stared at the text for a long time. My hands were still trembling, but not from fear anymore. From something else. Something sharper. Something that felt a lot like resolve. The first week after I got fired felt like falling down a well with no bottom. I woke up each morning with a tight chest, expecting the usual routine: shower, coffee, commute. But instead, I just sat in silence, staring at the walls like they owed me answers. Losing my job wasn't just about the paycheck. It felt like I'd lost my identity. For years, I told myself I was building something, proving myself. And now, I had nothing to show for it. No warning, no severance, just a cold goodbye and a locked security badge. My savings weren't great. Rent was due soon, and I knew I couldn't afford many more weeks like this. I started applying for jobs, anything at all, but my mind kept spinning. Every time I filled out an application, I wondered if they'd call Carson Tech for a reference, and what Greg would say. The nights were worse. That's when the doubt crept in. Maybe I should have just kept quiet. Maybe I overreacted. Who was I to think I could make a difference? But then the messages started coming. First Rosa, then Malik, then others, coworkers I'd barely spoken to before, all saying the same thing in slightly different words. We saw what happened, we know why they did it, and we're with you. I'll never forget one message in particular. It was from a guy named Lewis, one of the quietest developers on the floor. I hadn't spoken to him much. He wrote, "You had guts, man. Most of us wanted to speak up, but you actually did it. You made us all feel like maybe we're not crazy." That message hit me harder than the firing ever did. For the first time in weeks, I felt something shift. Maybe I wasn't alone. Maybe this wasn't the end of the story, just the part where everything starts to change. I stared at my phone, heart pounding. Maybe this wasn't rock bottom after all. Maybe it was the ground I had to stand on. To climb back up. The more messages I got, the more I realized something was shifting. Quietly under the surface, people were waking up, just like I had. What I thought was my personal downfall was actually a ripple, and those ripples were reaching further than I ever imagined. It started small. Rosa called me one evening. "I can't stop thinking about what they did to you," she said. "We all knew it wasn't right, but watching them punish you like that," her voice shook. It scared me, but it also made me angry. We talked for over an hour, about Greg, about HR, about how so many of us had been walking on eggshells for years. "I thought it was just me," she said quietly, "but now I know it's all of us." A few days later, Malik invited me to a private group chat. There were 6 of us at first, then 10, then 20. People I'd barely spoken to at work were now sharing stories I couldn't believe, things I hadn't seen or had seen but ignored, racist jokes in meetings, unpaid weekend shifts, threats masked as suggestions. We weren't just venting, we were building something. We started collecting evidence, screenshots, emails, time card discrepancies. Malik still had his log and others started their own. Someone suggested creating a timeline. Someone else talked about legal options. The energy was raw and real. For the first time, I wasn't just angry. I felt powerful. But fear was still there like a shadow. "What if they find out?" someone typed one night. "We could all lose our jobs." I stared at that message for a long time. Then I wrote back. "They're counting on our fear to keep us quiet. But if we all speak up together, they can't fire all of us." The group went silent. Then one by one, little thumbs-up icons popped up next to the message. That night, I didn't feel like a victim anymore. I felt like the beginning of something. Something they weren't going to see coming. It's strange how quickly fear turns into fire when you're not alone. Our group kept growing, quietly, carefully. We started meeting in person away from the office, usually at a coffee shop tucked behind a gas station. It wasn't glamorous, but it was safe. We kept our voices low, always watching the door, but what we said got louder each time. People shared things they'd never said out loud before. Rosa talked about how Greg used to compliment her work in front of clients, then undermine her behind closed doors. Malik shared an email where he was denied a raise, despite being the top performer on his team. Someone brought in spreadsheets. Someone else pulled old HR reports and policies. We weren't just angry anymore, we were organized. But with that came a new kind of pressure. I could see it in their eyes. This wasn't just about venting anymore. This was about standing up, and standing up meant risk. "What if they shut us down?" Lewis asked one night. "We don't have proof they broke the law." "We don't need to prove everything," I said. "We just need to prove a pattern and make it public." That word public sent a chill through the room. It was Malik who said what we were all thinking. If we go down together. That's the only way this works. Silence settled over us like a heavy blanket. No one spoke for a full minute. Then Rosa nodded, "I'm in." One by one, they all said it. So we got to work. We drafted a letter, detailed, professional, damning. It laid everything out: toxic culture, manipulation, discrimination, retaliation. We signed it anonymously as a collective. We planned the release date. We created a separate email account for media contact. And still, through it all, I felt the fear. Every ding of my phone, every knock on the door made my heart skip. But under that fear, something else had taken root, something deeper. Hope that maybe, just maybe, our voices would finally be heard. And this time, they wouldn't be able to ignore us. The day we released the letter, the office felt different. I wasn't even there, but I could feel it in every message that lit up my phone. The silence in the building, the frozen glances, the way Greg's door stayed shut for hours. We posted the letter at 9:00 a.m., emailed to HR, the board, and the CEO, but it didn't stop there. Within the hour, it was circulating across internal Slack channels. Someone leaked it outside. By noon, it was on Twitter. By 3:00 p.m., 3 tech blogs had picked it up. Anonymous workers from Carson Tech call out toxic culture, retaliation, and discrimination. It was happening, really happening. I stayed glued to my phone, watching it all unfold. At first, it was exhilarating, like breathing after being underwater for too long. But then the fear crept back in. What if they figured out who started it? What if they came after the people still inside? But then something unexpected happened. People started showing their faces. Lewis posted a tweet. "I was part of this. Everything in the letter is true. It's time." Then Rosa shared the letter on LinkedIn with her full name. Malik followed an hour later. I was stunned. We'd planned to stay anonymous, but here they were taking a risk I hadn't fully prepared for. My phone buzzed. It was Rosa. Her voice was calm but steady. "This is bigger than fear now," she said. "You gave us a reason to speak. Now we're doing it." I didn't know what to say. I felt proud, overwhelmed, scared all at once. Later that evening, I opened my laptop. I stared at the blank post for a long time. My heart was pounding. My hands were shaking. Then I typed, "My name is Daniel Reed. I was fired from Carson Tech for speaking up. I stand with every person who's still in there fighting. This isn't just my story, it's ours." And I clicked post. There was no turning back now. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't want to. The silence didn't last long. By the next morning, Carson Tech released a statement calling our claims unfounded and inconsistent with company values. They denied retaliation, denied toxic culture, said they were committed to fostering a safe and inclusive workplace. Corporate words, cold, empty. But the part that hit me hardest, they named me directly. A recently terminated employee has made public allegations. There is no merit to these claims. I sat there staring at the screen, my chest tight. There it was, my name dragged through the mud in front of thousands. They were trying to discredit me, bury me before I could rise. And for a moment, it worked. I closed my laptop. I didn't eat. I didn't check my phone. I just sat in the dark, wondering if I'd made a mistake, wondering if this fight was too big for me. But then the messages came flooding in again. "Saw the company statement. Don't believe a word. We've got your back." They're scared, that means we're getting somewhere. They can't silence all of us, Daniel. And it wasn't just coworkers this time. Journalists started reaching out. Former employees, even people from other companies who had experienced the same kind of treatment. Suddenly, we weren't just a group of angry workers. We were part of something bigger. Rosa texted me, "Let them push, we're not going anywhere." She was right, they could discredit me, but they couldn't discredit all of us. Not with the evidence we had, not with the stories piling up. We had strength in numbers now and truth on our side. So we pushed back. We gave interviews, we shared documentation. We started tagging the company's clients and investors on social media, urging them to pay attention. And they did. What had started as a whisper in the hallway had become a roar outside their glass walls. Carson Tech thought firing me would kill the spark. But all it did was light the fuse. 2 weeks after we went public, everything started to shift. It didn't happen in one big explosion. It was quieter than I imagined, the way old buildings fall. Cracks forming where no one thought to look, pressure building until something gives. First came the internal memo, leaked of course. Greg had been placed on leave pending investigation. HR tried to spin it like a routine review, but no one was fooled. Then the CEO sent out a company-wide email about a third-party audit and leadership restructuring. They were scrambling, and we weren't done. By then, our group had grown into a movement. We called ourselves the Collective Voice. Someone helped us build a website. We published stories anonymously or not. We set up a tip line. Every day, more employees came forward. Former interns, longtime managers, even a few from other branches. And then one afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. "Daniel Reed," a woman's voice asked. "Yes. This is Aaron Caldwell. I'm an employment attorney. I've been following your story. I'd like to help." I blinked, unsure if I'd heard right. "I think you have grounds for a retaliation lawsuit," she continued. "And you're not the only one." We scheduled a call that night. By the time I hung up, I knew this wasn't just about me getting justice. It was about holding an entire system accountable. A few days later, Rosa called. Her voice was shaky. "Greg's gone," she said. "They fired him this morning." I sat down slowly. "Are you serious?" They announced it at the staff meeting, no sugarcoating it. They said violations of internal conduct policies. People clapped. I didn't say anything at first. My throat tightened. I didn't feel joy exactly. I felt released. The man who fired me for telling the truth had finally been held accountable, and it hadn't happened in secret. It happened because we stood up, together. That night, I stood by my window, watching the city lights flicker like tiny torches in the dark. The walls hadn't just cracked. They started to fall. I never got my old job back, and I didn't want it. What I wanted was something more, something real. After Greg was fired and the audit concluded, Carson Tech issued a public apology. They admitted to serious internal failures. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. HR leadership changed. Mandatory culture training was implemented. Some of our former teammates were offered new roles in different departments, roles with actual support this time. Rosa took a job with a nonprofit focused on workplace equity. Malik started his own tech consultancy. Lewis finally applied for the management role he'd been passed over for and got it. And me. I started writing, not code this time, stories, about what we went through, about what it meant to speak up and be silenced and then rise louder. I got invited to speak at panels, write op-eds, even guest lecture at a local university. Funny how life works. I lost a job and found my voice. The Collective Voice became more than a group chat. It became a network, a safe place for workers across industries. What began in the corner of one toxic office spread far beyond anything I ever imagined. One afternoon, I got a message from someone I'd never met. "I just read your story. I'm going through something similar at my job. I've been afraid to speak up. But now, maybe I'm not alone, thank you." I stared at the message for a long time. That's when I knew it was never just about taking down one bad boss or exposing one company's failures. It was about lighting a path for others. It was about reminding people that silence isn't the only option, and that courage, even from just one person, can shake the ground. Looking back, getting fired felt like the end of everything. But really, It was the start of everything that matters. We were told to be quiet. We chose to speak. And now no one could unhear us.